A massive Steelers trade is incoming. Following what has been a very exciting past few weeks of football for the Steelers team, a brand new report has dropped as it pertains to a trade regarding one particular player that has fans fired up. We're going to break down this new report, discuss what it means going forward, and of course, discuss who that player is. But we also have some big updates ahead of the game tomorrow against the Bengals. Folks, you're going to want to stay tuned till the end of this video. There are some crazy new reports that have dropped surrounding a trade. But before we get into all that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a part of the percentage or aren't subscribed to the channel and you're enjoying the daily Steelers content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. This is the place to be for it. And we're all excited for the big game tomorrow against the Bengals. But folks, I'm going to take a step back here and talk about a big trade report that has dropped in the past few hours surrounding the Steelers. And we know a lot of reports have floated about the Steelers looking for a wide receiver and questions being asked. Who could that wide receiver be? Will there be enough touches to go around for, of course, that player? Let's dive into it because a new report has dropped. And let's start with it right here. So you can see this here. Trade Idea sends A.J. Brown, yes, A.J. Brown, to the Steelers, a new mock trade that has Pittsburgh Steelers trading a rather hefty package to the Philadelphia Eagles for a star wide receiver. Now, we know that the Steelers, like I mentioned earlier, having a fantastic season. There's no doubt about that thus far. We all know they have good seasons sometimes and they either trail off in the second half or die off after the first half. A.J. Brown is a star receiver, and there's been a lot of talks about it. I'm very curious to see what you guys think about it in the comment section because we know Adam Schefter has recently come out and said that the Steelers are looking to upgrade at the wide receiver position. Now, let's look into this. The Pittsburgh Steelers have been connected to countless wide receivers over the past few months, with their depth chart at the position severely lacking. And I want to dive into that in a minute here, but we'll read the article throughout entirety first. Making a splash move at the deadline is easier said than done, but could kind of fall into their all-in mantra that a lot of people are talking about. And they say here, could the Steelers make the most of this opportunity? If Brown were to be made available by Philadelphia, and we know A.J. Brown has been making a bunch of cryptic posts, a bunch of complaints about how, A.J. Brown's unhappy with Philadelphia without directly saying it. Him and Jalen Hurts seem to be not on the same page, not getting enough touches, all these different things. Could this be an opportunity for the Steelers? That's what people are proposing. And there was a new trade proposed by Cody Benjamin saying that Pittsburgh could send a pair of contributors, an outside linebacker Alex Highsmith and tight end Pat Freiermuth, as well as a third-round pick to the Eagles for the star receiver. And if you're an Eagles fan, let me know down below what your thoughts are on this deal. I'm going to take it from the perspective of the Steelers here. And I've done a lot of thinking about, of course, as a Steelers fan, who the Steelers can get out of, the trade deadline. Who do they actually need? Do they need a WR1, number one wide receiver? Or are they better off suited for maybe a WR3, like a Tim Patrick type? All videos on all that. However, this one is interesting. You're giving up a third-round pick, Pat Freiermuth, and Alex Highsmith. Now, Freiermuth hasn't had a great year thus far. The Steelers have three tight ends, and I don't know if they want to fully give up on Pat Freiermuth. However, if you're getting A.J. Brown back, it's very unique. And basically, they dive into talking, why on earth would the Steelers deal for Brown when they already have spent picks? And we know DK Metcalf's having a very solid year, especially in the touchdown department. And the answer is because they're all in on winning with Aaron Rodgers this year, and their 4-1 start suggests they'll remain aggressive in roster building, talking about the lack of, obviously, role that Pat Freiermuth has. This is where I want your guys' thoughts on this, because it's a very unique situation to be in, the Steelers, right? You're in a position to where, according to multiple reports, they're going to go out and they're going to try to acquire a wide receiver. It hasn't been made clear yet whether that's a guy like A.J. Brown, whether that's somebody else. This team, as it currently stands, they don't necessarily, and the article said they don't have a ton of wide receiver depth. We've started to see slowly but surely some but some faces start to, get better here. Under Aaron Rodgers, they've thrown the ball a little bit more. Obviously, we know the Steelers, fantastic on defense, all these different things. Is there enough touches to go around for another wide receiver? That's the first question you have to ask. And then beyond that, folks, A.J. Brown, if he's upset with his touches in Philadelphia, I don't think he's going to get many more or even the same amount as he is getting with the Eagles out here in Pittsburgh. And that's one of the things, because we know if you watch the Steelers games, yes, this is a more, not necessarily, more than previous years at least, they're using their wide receivers more, throwing the ball more, right? Because it's Aaron Rodgers, makes sense. DK Metcalf is getting a ton of touchdowns. He's been their deep ball threat. He's been there. There's a lot of different ways that they're using him. If you bring in A.J. Brown, do you want to take away reps from DK Metcalf, who's been pretty good as of late? Do you want to give up guys like Pat Freiermuth or more picks in order to do so? I don't think Pat Freiermuth is necessarily a untouchable in any of these, wide receiver trades. And of course, Highsmith, as we know, returned from ankle injury, a week or so ago. He is very good off the edge as well. I don't know if they want to give up more picks for someone like this. Now, a new report from Adam Schefter dropped beyond just the fact that they're trading and they want to trade for a wide receiver. And they said just this past week, 3 of the 4 teams in the AFC North, of course, Baltimore, the Bengals, and of course, the Cleveland Browns, made trades Tuesday. The only AFC North team that didn't was the Steelers, who are expected to explore upgrading the roster in the weeks ahead of the deadline. And they did mention names like A.J. Brown, names like some other guys, Chris Olave. We'll dive into all of them in future videos. I don't know with the way that this team is looking right now that there's necessarily there's always room for a great wide receiver. Do you want to bring in the attitude that A.J. Brown has? And whether or not you're a fan of him and you think his attitude is warranted or not, there's something to be said there, right? Now, I think Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers, all those guys would handle it fine. Is that a player you want to bring in and trade assets for? They already gave up a ton of assets for DK Metcalf, respectively, right? Maybe not a ton, depending on how you view it, but either way, you look at the wide receiver group. DK Metcalf, obviously, is the wide receiver 1. You have Calvin Austin, who's looked pretty good at times. The big question remains here, Darnell Washington, Jonnu Smith. You can see here, Pat Fryermuth has fallen down. And I said earlier, they have 3 tight ends. I guess you might include 4, 3 that they use semi-consistently. It makes things interesting because in the past, we know the Steelers run heavy offense. Changed a tiny bit. Still, you have Jaylen Warren, you have Kenneth Gainwell. I almost think that, and we know, there's not a lot of touches to go around as is. Like Calvin Austin's not getting a ton of touches. Scotty Miller, all these guys, they aren't getting a ton of touches anyway. But at the same time, if you bring in A.J. Brown, do you try to make room for him? Of course you would. You would get him as many touches as possible. He's a multi-time Pro Bowler. He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, or at least was in previous years. I just don't think there's enough touches to go around. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. Again, we know the way that kind of their wide receiver core is looking like. You have a good few of them. The depth isn't necessarily where they need it to be, which is why they're looking to acquire other guys, whether that's a Tim Patrick, whether that's somebody else. I don't think going for this star-studded wide receiver, like the top end of the top end, which A.J. Brown is, would make a ton of sense because then you have to give up more assets. You have to pay more for him. You have to pay him more, all these different things. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. That's kind of just where I'm at with it. There's some people, feel free to pause and read this, that want them. Let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts are. Now, let's dive into something else. Of course, we know, big game tomorrow, prime time, Thursday Night Football. A new article dropped with 3 must-know storylines. I want to dive into them a little bit here because there is some things to talk about. And I'm more excited to just see how they play. You can take a stranglehold in the division. You can look, this game is huge. And there's been a lot of talk from other fans about how, the schedule has been easy. The Steelers only lost being against the Seahawks. The Steelers have played really good football. I don't want to take that away from them. Now, let's dive into some of the storylines ahead of the game tomorrow. Rodgers taking a quicker, shorter approach. We know, you can see here, he's only averaging 204 passing yards per game, which would be a career low for a full season, but he's played more efficiently than he did with the Jets. And of course, throwing some more checkdowns, making sure that, he's protecting the football at least to the best of his ability. We know DK Metcalf, he's going to be the go-to option every time. He's going to run verticals. He's going to, of course, be a guy who scores touchdowns. Scored touchdowns in, I believe, 4 straight games. So it is what it is. Keeping an eye out for Rodgers tomorrow. Can he sustain what he's been doing? They're obviously going to look for DK Metcalf. How will a beat-up Bengals team fare? You're going up against Joe Flacco. How will the secondary of the Bengals be able to contain guys like DK Metcalf? Those are all questions. And some more questions. How will Joe Flacco do? The Bengals made a trade for him, and you can see here, starting a game for the Bengals less than 5 days after being traded from the Browns, he predictably struggled in the Bengals' first start. Can they contain him again? Can the Steelers' defense step up? They always do. I have full faith in that. And then, of course, the biggest question, defense, the Steelers' defense, like I mentioned, making progress with the pass rush. We know to start the season, despite their winning ways, the pass rush didn't look like the normal Steelers pass rush, didn't look like what we were used to, but it always bounces back. 20 sacks in 2025, including 6 in week 6. Can they do that again? Joe Flacco is not going to be... He's going to stay in the pocket. He's not going to be running the ball. He's not going to be able to. He's a good decision maker. He's a veteran. The Steelers should be able to get to him. Hopefully they can replicate what they did last week with 6 sacks. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. An exciting game tomorrow. What's your prediction for the score? And do you think A.J. Brown is a good option? You guys have been beasts with the support. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.